So if you're out there struggling, living with your parents due to the pandemic, and you don't really have any direction in your life, it's okay. It's completely fine. You'll find your way in due time. And I'm not gonna say it's going to be easy. It's going to be one of the hardest things you've done up to this point. And I think that's what defines your journey. I think that external journey ended up happening anyways. It just took in a different form than you expected. If you graduated in 2020 or 2021, the pandemic kind of screwed us. I feel like it really set us back in terms of career growth and potential job prospects. This was an event that's never happened in history, maybe the Spanish flu or the bubonic plague, but in modern times, this has not happened. And I feel like a lot of people are struggling with this and continually feel left behind, and no one is talking about it, and I hope I can shed some light on the situation. So here's my personal experience with it. So I graduated in March of 2020 during the peak of the pandemic. And this is when they canceled everything. We're on full lockdown and they canceled my graduation. This was so tough, right? It was a very confusing time and you couldn't really see your friends and family. You just finished school and you wanted to have one last final victory lap with the people you cared and loved. And this was just robbed. There was no conclusive end to the 4 grueling years of college of studying for finals and projects. And then I feel like you lost all this momentum, building your resume, networking, going to career fairs, and then bam, in a snap of a finger, it was all gone. It feels like all the hard work that you put in amounted to absolutely nothing. And I think that's the hardest part, is trying to find meaning within all of this and to continue on this journey. And that's the next thing I want to talk about, is what journey can you really go on when you can't go out and travel and explore and do new things? I think personally for me, I had plans to go back to Europe to visit the country of Spain, Sevilla specifically, the place where I studied abroad. And I made these plans half a year in advance with my best friends. And I was so excited for this trip because I was so burnt out after college. I wanted to unwind and finally live my life before I started the adult world, full of responsibilities, and my time was limited. And even if I could request PTO to go on a vacation, I feel like not having that stress linger on your mind about work is so much different right after college when you're unemployed. You're free. You have absolutely zero responsibilities and you can do whatever you want and you can stay in Europe as long as you want. Technically, I think it's like 6 months without a visa, but you get the point. It's just different. When you go on a vacation, when you have a full-time job, it's just not the same. This, of course, had to get canceled due to these circumstances, and I was so bummed. I wanted to go to Europe on my journey to discover, what do I want to do with my life? And I was so disappointed. Well, it sucks that there's no external journey. The only journey that you can go on is an internal one. I know how cliche and woo-woo spiritual that sounds like, but it was a really legitimate journey that provided me the introspection to pivot my life and to keep on going. So after college, I had to move back to my hometown of Denver, and I was away from all my friends and mentors and the community that I spent so much time trying to build up over the past 4 years. I feel like all that effort into building meaningful connections was just lost. And I was in my hometown living in my mom's basement with no job and no point to life. And to make matters worse, my girlfriend at the time ended up breaking up with me due to the long distance relationship. She was in California and I was in Denver. And this was so tough. I feel like she was the last connection I had to my college community and to my college town and a part of my identity. I feel like that was ripped away in addition to the pandemic. Because now I didn't have my friends in close contact, someone that I built a life with that I thought I was gonna move to San Francisco and enjoy my young adulthood with. That was taken away, right? And I think the last nail in the coffin was job opportunities. There just wasn't any during this time. A lot of companies went on a hiring freeze. They weren't hiring anymore, or even if they rescinded a lot of offers and they were downsizing. So I think without a clear-cut path in my life, I had no meaning. So here I was, sitting in my mom's basement, feeling absolutely useless. You know, they would go off to work and my brother would go off to work, and I'm just sitting home alone playing Xbox all day, heartbroken. And this was the dark night of the soul. And I like to label it because it was one of the hardest times in my life. And this all happened during 2020 to the end of 2021. It took me about half a year to finally find my own footing and to find my stride. What did I do during all this time? Of course, it's so arduous and difficult to apply for jobs when you're depressed and you're down and out. How do you have the motivation to find a job when you really don't want to? I was so burnt out, I needed some time to unwind. But the thing was, how do you unwind without seeing your friends due to COVID lockdowns? So I spent a lot of this time isolated, alone. I feel like I went on the highest level of difficulty in figuring out my shit. It's just isolation in a city where everyone that you knew moved on. I haven't been in the state of Colorado for 4 years, so any relationships or contacts that I had, they all moved on and forgot about me. My whole new life was in California, but the thing was, I couldn't just fly back. I didn't have a job, my lease was over, and everyone that I knew in California kind of went back to their hometown, so I couldn't go back to my college town to hang out. So this was like a catch-22, and I'm here to tell you that if you're struggling due to the pandemic and everything, it's totally okay. And it's not your fault. It is not your fault. And I have so much empathy just knowing the emotions and the cognitive dissonance and all the shitty feelings you're going through. It is so fucking real. And I'm here to tell you that I'm so sorry. You need to know that things are going to work out in the long run. I think having faith was the only thing that kept me going. That's all I had. You would wake up with no schedule or anything to do in that day. So what I did do, right, the positives of this was I just started going on long walks. I would just go on like 7-mile walks next to the state park next to my house. And I would just start walking and getting lost in the neighborhoods while all my friends are living in a new city, establishing themselves, employed. And here I am, unemployed, broke as fuck, just going on these long, pointless walks. But I'm so grateful that I did that. It's like a metaphor looking back. That was my journey. It was like I was walking through this desert of nothingness. While I was walking, I gave myself a lot of space to ask myself legitimate questions. What do I want out of my own life? What do I think I want to do? Where do I want to end up? And how am I going to get there? So at this time, I thought I was going to go into marketing, right? Or just do some cliche work, move to San Francisco like everyone else in my college and just follow the crowd. But this time really gave me the opportunity to pivot and do the things I enjoy. So by going on these long walks, I think the exercise boosted my joy by getting sunlight and just being outside with nature. And on top of that, I was reading a lot of books, philosophy, finance books, and autobiographies and memoirs. I think one of the books I read, let me see if I have it, it's right here. I read Steve Jobs' autobiography. And this was so awesome because you read someone as brilliant as Steve Jobs and you're realizing he was lost during our age as well. He didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And look how great he ended up. And that gave me so much faith that things were going to turn out as long as I kept on moving and going forward. Anything that I was interested in, I would try to pursue. Obviously, it's limited by the restrictions, but I started going to museums and visiting like these childhood spots to kind of like spark up my imagination again and be like, what did I want to do when I was a kid? And when did I just ignore that inner voice? And I think that was a beautiful time. I look back at those moments and I'm so grateful I went through the dark night of the soul. I wouldn't be the man I am today without those hard, arduous times. It taught me perseverance and experiencing adversity and going through and self-reliance. And I'm so thankful for that. And on top of this, as time went on, the motivation kind of started to build up. Obviously not all at once, but slowly. So when I did start applying to jobs, I know how grueling and depressing that is, just applying to online jobs and getting rejected or ghosted after you spent hours filling out their application, perfecting your resume, and even if you get an initial interview, they ghost you. I know how hard that process is, but I didn't give up, and I think that's the number one thing that separated me from another applicant. I just didn't give up. I just kept on going. And eventually my mom told me to go reach out to my family, friends, my friends' parents, anyone I knew, former teachers and mentors, and just tell them about my situation. So I ended up just calling everyone I knew, and I was like, hey, I just graduated from college. I'm going through a hard time. I am looking for a job. I was wondering, did your company have anything that's open? One thing that did help me was I did get very good grades in college, and I had a very good resume full of experience and internships. So that helped me a lot. Weeks would go on by where I just called people and wouldn't hear back. Then one day I'm sitting on my porch reading a book because I had nothing else to do, preparing to go on my long ass walk. And I get a call from a close family friend that I haven't talked to in like 4 years. And he told me there's a job opening on the East Coast. And at this time I was like, yo, I'm not moving to the East Coast. I want to stay in California or Colorado where my family is. And it was just such an absurd thought. And I think one of the books that I read was, this is why your intuition never speaks up. It whispers, but you always ignore it because it sounds so crazy. As time went on, I gave it a thought and I was like, what am I doing here in Denver? I'm just sitting in my mom's basement. I don't have a girlfriend holding me back anymore. I'm not even close to my friends right now. I have nothing to lose. I think this is my calling. So a week later, I secured a lease and I drove out to the East Coast. And ever since then, I've been working in the DC, Maryland area for a consulting company. And I'm so grateful, so grateful to have this opportunity. But I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't go through that difficult time. Because moving to a new city without friends, it was such a scary thought at the time. Going to a new city, not knowing anyone, starting a new role, and moving in by yourself, driving across the country. There were so many what ifs and anxious thoughts. But one thing that stood out was, dude, I'm already down and out. This is the lowest I can go. The only place I can go is up. I was so down and out that I was like, I have nothing to lose. Literally, I had nothing to lose. So I moved out to the East Coast and things have worked out so well, and I'm so grateful. So if you're out there struggling, living with your parents due to the pandemic, and you don't really have any direction in your life, it's okay. It's completely fine. You'll find your way in due time. And I'm not gonna say it's going to be easy. It's going to be one of the hardest things you've done up to this point. And I think that's what defines your journey. I think that external journey ended up happening anyways. It just took in a different form than you expected. So please like and subscribe if this video helped you. I know it was very personal, and I thank you to the one person on Reddit who had this suggestion. Thank you very much and have a great day. Namaste.